So one of the topics that came out of our last survey was talking about change management and change in marketing and how to kind of roll that out. I figured that was a great topic for the end of the year as we look to start fresh next month. So I borrowed and would like to present John Carter's 8 Steps to Change Management. Have any of you studied that or done any research on change management to have seen his 8 steps? I'll take the silence as a no. So really looking at change management or any change that you want to roll out, whether it is a technology or just a marketing initiative, he broke it down to 8 processes or steps, strategies to roll out change. He is the thought leader in change management. He's been around for several decades. And this document they updated it last year in 2018. I can provide the entire document. I've shortened it for this call, but I can give you the entire ebook so that you can have access to it as well. And we'll send that out in the follow-up tomorrow. So no matter how we look at things, the world continues to change, and it's doing so faster. But our ability to keep up hasn't kept pace, which I kind of feel like in marketing, we all would agree with that because there's new philosophies and different changes around every corner. What hasn't changed is our goals behind transformation or changes or our marketing initiatives. At the root of all the things that we try to do in marketing, it's to increase revenue or profits or to decrease costs, which would increase revenue and profits, and to become more effective or efficient, which would then have impact on your revenue or profits. And ideally, we would want to do both with any change that we bring to our companies. The 8 steps of change management: you first create a sense of urgency. That is the only way to get things done or to initiate change, is to show that it needs to happen and needs to happen now. To build a guiding coalition. To form a strategic vision or share strategic initiatives. To enlist volunteers. To enable action by removing barriers. To generate short-term wins. Sustain acceleration. And finally, institute the change that you want to establish. So now we're going to take a look at each of those steps and the ultimate results that you want from them. So the first one is to create a sense of urgency. To do so, you really have to look at the why behind what it is that you want. Uh-oh, it appears that I am still on the title page, so you guys do not see me changing the title. That is not good. Okay, let me stop sharing and share again. All right, do you see step 1 on the screen now?
Yes, it has changed.
Awesome. Okay, well let's go back real quick. That is not good. All right, so it's changing faster, our ability to keep up, revenue and profits. Again, I'll share this so you guys can have access to it. But so here are the 8 steps. And looking at creating urgency, building a team, or what Cotter calls a guiding coalition, forming a strategic vision, enlisting volunteers, or inviting the rest of your company to participate in this change. Enable action by removing barriers, generate short-term wins, sustain, acceleration, and institute change. Can everybody see those 8 steps on the screen? I should double check that it's still moving.
Lauren Kobzeff seeing 8 steps.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Lauren. Okay, so starting with the first one, sense of urgency. No one wants to change just for change's sake, as we all know. So really showing the why. If you've read Find Your Why by Simon Sinek, really looking deep into what it is that you're after. So if you tie it back to, we need to increase our revenue and this is the change and how we're going to do it. Tying it back to, we need to be more efficient and this is why we're making this change, whether it's a technology change, a marketing initiative, a new website, whatever that looks like, describing and making sure that everybody knows the why is very important, but you can't stop there. You have to have urgency behind it, or it will be slow to be adopted, or it won't be a priority. So really showing urgency is what Dr. Cotter saw as the most important first step. So you have to know and be able to communicate why this has to happen now. The result is that we would have a focused readiness across the company in your organization once you understand and document that urgency. These are some of the questions that Cotter presents so that you can ask to get to the bottom of why and how to communicate the urgency. So what is at stake if you succeed, or in the reverse, what is at stake if you fail? So whether that's, hey, this piece of technology is up for renewal and the price is too high, we found an alternative, we need to implement that now. If we don't, we're not going to have anything because we're not renewing the old one. Whatever that looks like, being able to communicate that is key. Windows of opportunity are appearing more quickly than ever. Identifying them and mobilizing urgency around them is becoming the key to beating our competitors. Disrupt or be disrupted. One of the examples that always comes to mind, especially because I travel so much, is Uber and how they disrupted the taxi community and that business. And you either were disrupted or you were the disruptor and on the side of Uber. So really just looking at that on our industry too, like what is going to be this disruptor for AEC, whether that's technology and the use of automation and autonomous vehicles, or just smart job sites in general, so that you're getting notifications when people are on or off job sites and things like that. So really looking at the urgency of understanding technology, and that is what will help us beat our competitors. Any questions on step 1, creating urgency, or any examples of how you have created urgency in your own companies? All right, moving on to step 2 is building a guiding coalition or just a team, committee, whatever that language is in your own firm. Looking at it as the nerve center. So really, this is what will drive the change in the company or drive the implementation of a new marketing initiative. Having it be the correct members is very important. What we're seeing is that the most successful teams or committees are from multiple layers in the hierarchy of your company. So not just having C-suite together, but having someone that is a doer, someone that is middle management, someone that is upper management, all coming together. You'll see on the slide that it's talking about all levels, all ranks, all demographics, looking at all different age range and all generations, since we have so many generations now in our workforce. So having that understanding as you form this team will lead to the ultimate success. The result of step 2, the linchpin of the entire transformation, having the accountability of a diverse group bound by this effort and strategy, and giving them the ability to create action. The guiding coalition is the first opportunity to engage beyond the usual suspects in your organization. So again, having this be a custom committee, not just handing it to, you know, the 3 marketing people or the marketing department of 1 and saying, go forth and conquer, but really looking at who needs to be involved. If you're looking at website, have it be a technical person, an operations person, someone in leadership, someone in IT, someone in accounting, so that every department is represented to a certain degree. Looking at having more eyes and more brains to think, and also, again, outside of just marketing, so you don't have the group think happening. Cotter summarizes this by select few and diverse many. Some questions as you develop step 2. Having this committee or these people need to have a commitment to change and the initiative, and to fully understand it. Does anybody have any examples or questions about creating the team to make the change? We are going to blow through this if no one wants to talk.
I don't have this is Amy. I don't have a question, but on this one, like just coming from a market, like even a large marketing department, I struggle with who has the authority. Like if marketing is driving this change or needing this change, like having the authority to, I don't know, assign those people to this, you know what I mean, to the change management team, like, because in the past, it seems like it was always taken over by leadership took it on, and then the wrong people ended up being involved. Like, you know what I mean? So that's one thing I would struggle with.
Yeah, and I think that if typically whoever, you know, signs up the dotted line for the new initiative, whatever that is, on the leadership level, if you explain to them that building the right team will make it successful, and showing the why and having the research to back that up tends to be very persuasive, especially if you come at it as, we're spending a lot of money to make this initiative happen and we need the right people and these are the reasons why, not just because, well, I need to check this box or I want to make the committee bigger, what have you, but really coming at it from the perspective of, we need to have this representation and this is why, I think is helpful. But also knowing, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Leader, just because you're the one who signed it on the dotted line does not mean that you should run the initiative, and here is why too, because you know, just having that, I think, backs up.
Yeah, true.
Any other feedback? This is where I think marketers' ears kind of perk up, because we love the strategy and the visions for our initiatives. So I don't think that this will come as any surprise that we need to have one. Step 3 is about just being able to articulate what it is that our ultimate goal is, or what that target is. So Dr. Cotter defines the strategic initiatives as targeted and coordinated activities that, if designed and executed fast enough and well enough, will make your vision a reality. Some of the characteristics of a terrific strategic vision are listed here. I do like that the last one, I think it should be first, is simple. That really helps, because I think sometimes in our industry we like to use big words that make it the opposite of simple. But really looking at, obviously we do CRM day in and day out. And so we always like to start every training with, why are we doing this? Not just, you know, you are here because you're supposed to use this specific app and now we're going to do training on it. But really, hey, we care about our clients and we want to know what's going on with them. And at the end of the day, our clients are all we have a business. So that is why we use this piece of technology. Always going back to that why is really helpful, so that people remind themselves why we're doing this. Why should I care about whatever this change or initiative is? focusing on the actions will also advance your opportunities so that you have a clear call to action of this implementation. You can't appeal to people with data and facts alone, unless you're like me and love data and numbers, and then that's enough. But typically you can't appeal to people by data and facts alone. You must also account for how people feel. If you can provide greater meaning and purpose to their efforts, this is what Cotter talks about as the head and heart. So the head being the data and the heart being the feelings behind it. So not just saying we need to increase our revenue, but getting after the heartstrings of the reason we're doing this is so that we can give back to our employees, or we can help our clients build a better environment around us, whatever that looks like for your initiative. But I think that as a whole, our society is coming to understand that the heart is just as important as the head in all that we do, whether it's marketing efforts or just us in our workplace environments. And I do appreciate that the younger generation is bringing that even more into perspectives. Anybody have anything about head and heart for step 3? I think it's crucial for us as marketers to understand this piece as well, that even our proposals have to hit at both the head and the heart to motivate people to take action or to choose our firms. This one, I always struggle with this whole volunteer army idea, but it's really just talking about your employees and that they do have a choice, that they are volunteering to get behind you or not. I think of, volunteers like, oh, I'm going to go help the Red Cross, or I'm going to donate blood. But if you think more about the choice, and that we understand that we're giving people a choice to get behind us or not, to follow or to be resistant, then we really do understand that we have to have a significant number of employees to back it or volunteer or choose to all go in the same direction. Until, I guess that's the result, is to have a sizable amount in order to make it successful. How does one do that? You need to give people a choice and not just mandate it, and give them permission to step up and act. And this does not need to involve outsiders, but really it's your team that already has it. Your existing people hold that energy. It just needs to be tapped into, is Cotter's argument here. So you have to needs to change to you want to. So as marketers, we are responsible for crafting a message that isn't, this is mandatory and this is the iron fist coming down, but rather, this is why, and we would love for you to join us and get behind us and help appeal to their want to side. To do this, giving people a reason, like I said, a strong vision to hold on to. Any thoughts that kind of come up when you're making the shift from this is mandated to this is voluntary? I think that last bullet is something that my personality really struggles with, is as Amy can attest to, I tend to do really well at the beginning of, okay, this is why we're doing it, and then go forth and conquer. But I sometimes lack the ability to recognize the effort of continuing on that vision and keeping everybody engaged, and recruiting more I can do, but because that's kind of that initial buy-in, but keeping everybody engaged along that track, I think is is important, just as important as the initial recruiting.
Mm-hmm. As well as having affirmation come from key leadership above, that the volunteers haven't been forgotten about, the initiative hasn't been forgotten about, even though it may be 6 months from inception and you're like, well, we can't quite see the end yet, but we're working through all the things. I mean, the volunteer burnout is real, but if you can have the reminder that, no, it's okay to put some of your time toward this. This is important to the firm, or company or organization. That can really go a long way for flagging enthusiasm, if you will.
That's great. That's a great point. And even just the small sound bites go a long way. So even if you just have a small quote from somebody in the leadership talking about the impact of what you're doing is important too, just to email that out. It doesn't have to be a huge campaign or create some fancy video, but just a reminder of, hey, this is working, keep up the hard work. Step 5 is all about removing barriers. So really looking at the process ahead and saying, okay, what is it that people, the naysayers of the company, what are they going to put up? What are real barriers and what can have keep us from making a real impact? And then facing those head on so that when you do launch, you already address them. So, hey, we know that switching timesheets is going to be cumbersome at the beginning. That's why we've put together this cheat sheet for you. What have you. We're giving you an extra 5 minutes of your allotted time, whatever that looks like, so that you already address them head on. Really helps those negative Nancy's kind of get on board and then volunteer to choose to back you. It's less about new ideas and more about knocking down barriers to make those ideas a reality. Most of us are not sending, creating rockets to send people to new planets, but really it's just about how can we become more efficient and break down the things that we've either put in our own way or that are conceived barriers. Cotter addresses how to spot those barriers. In order to remove them, you must first identify them, of course. Looking at some of the common statements that they hear as they come into companies to do change management. It's not been done that way. I think we've all heard that one a time or two. We tried that already and it didn't work. So really addressing those in your messaging when you're kicking off a new change, I think is really important. So, hey, I know we've redone the website before. I know we've redone our collateral, but this is why we need this, that, and the other. Really does help address those right off the bat. The last bullet, I think that our industry is notorious for silos and what that creates, and that can create great entrepreneurship in leaders, but at the same time can create a lot of marketing nightmares as far as this office markets this way and this leader doesn't like this part of our brand. And I think that really addressing those when you're trying to roll out something company-wide is really important, so that you can say, hey, I know in the past you've taken what are company-wide initiatives with a grain of salt, but this is why we need you to, this is why it's important that you get behind this, and really addressing those potential silos. Any other barriers that come to mind that you guys have overcome or are still trying to overcome? All right, the next step is short-term wins. This one I always talk about when I'm talking about implementing new technology, because really it's, I like how Cotter says it, is that wins are the morsels of results, or excuse me, molecules of results. So really it's holding on and using them to propel you to that ultimate finish line, or to keep going if there is no ultimate finish line like there is with most technologies. So looking at what will get you early results or early buy-in. So sometimes what would be the easiest is not often the biggest bang for your buck. So really understanding, if we are able to get one office on board, if we are able to get this one leader, then everything else will fall into place. Then really going after those wins is critical. The results, you want a body of data that tells the story of transformation so that you can market that and capitalize on that. You want it to be validated, quantifiable, and, oh, excuse me, I have been fighting a sinus infection and my ears are trying to pop. Oh. And not just quantity, but quality in your marketing communication to your stakeholders. You want to be able to say, this is how we're being successful, and then communicate those wins. Go for it. When you're looking at characteristics of effective win, looking at how it's meaningful to everyone in the company. You don't want it to be ambiguous. You want it to be tangible so that people can replicate it and adapt to it. I have also found that lifting up others and examples, like, man, this superintendent really got behind this, and because of that, we were able to win this client, and be able to directly connect to those dots is really impactful and will encourage others to kind of adopt that behavior. And this last sentence, I do like that you're emphasizing wins that you're able to scale across the organization and replicate. Okay, it looks like somebody else might have joined us. Welcome. We're talking about strategies for marketing change. We're headed on to step 7 of 8. So this far into the process, the idea is that you have made progress and that you want to be able to sustain that. Once you start going, the tendency is to step your foot off the gas, but really Cotter is arguing that once you're in, it's really the time to press harder after you've had those first several wins. You want to capitalize on that, and then also use it as a time to recruit. Like Lauren said, volunteer burnout is real, and you want to continue to inject new blood into the process. So sometimes what we do when we come in to do new implementations of things is that you have a volunteer base for phase 1, and then a different committee or volunteer base for phase 2, potentially phase 3, however long this initiative is. So if you take like a website redesign, for example, you might have a certain amount of people that are in the planning session of picking the designer and interviewers and all of that. And then once the new company has been chosen, then you have a different set of committees that go through the actual design and changes and scope and all of that. And then a different committee for QC and quality control at the very end. So really, it allows you to keep that acceleration and not slow down in the process. This ties back to that first step. So if urgency drops, then complacency will always step in. And that can be much more difficult than even at the very beginning. because then you have to create urgency a second time or create momentum again, and that can be much more difficult to get rid of that complacency. Here are some tips that Dr. Carter gives to help with the sustainment. Always talking about the urgency, or remember, if we don't hit this deadline, X will happen. Going back to that question that he asked earlier about what will happen if you fail or if you don't succeed at this change. Again, getting more and more people involved, and then new volunteers with fresh ideas. Or if you find that some are throwing up barriers or making the process difficult or slowing things down, just remove them, he says, which is easier said than done sometimes. Does anybody have any examples of how they were able to sustain the acceleration or continue to have that urgency? Or successfully remove people from a committee that were harming the implementation or change management? All right, the final step is to institute the change. Woohoo! To ensure new behaviors are repeated over the long term, it is important that you define and communicate the connections between those behaviors and the success. So really just talking about, we've reached our goal, this is what we were able to accomplish, whether it was we impacted the bottom line by X amount, we were able to increase our efficiency by such and such, really looking at the ROI. Looking at that, you have to know what it was before in order to know what it is now. So really doing the diligence up front to say, it takes us X amount of time to do proposals. Once we implemented an automation process, it increased our time by X, so that you know what it was at the beginning. This is the stage that really Carter is looking at the management and leadership, so that you have strong management for day-to-day and then strong leadership to capitalize on the future or the unpredictable opportunities. How to make the change that you've worked so hard at stick. Looking at having them deeply rooted and replacing old habits. Clear communication and continue. I think that it also can't, it's not just clear, it has to be consistent or continual communication around the success or around why you instituted that change. So to conclude, reviewing the 8 steps: create urgency, build a team, form a vision. Remember that it's voluntary or a choice for the stakeholders or employees to join. Enable action by removing barriers. Generate short-term wins. Don't take your foot off the pedal and accelerate to sustain the progress, and then celebrate that you instituted change. So those are the steps to initiate marketing changes. Does anybody have any questions or comments or feedback? Awesome. Our next call is Thursday, January 9th, where we will be talking about MarTech. So I hope that you all join us and have a fantastic end of 2019 and a wonderful beginning of 2020. And I will talk to you, for those that are joining us on December 12th, I'll talk to you then for the CRM user group call. And then for those that won't be on there, I will talk to you next year. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Bye, guys.
Bye.